Watch those feet under the table.
Good, how are you? We're going to start in about 2 or 3 minutes with just some little teachers.
Earlier, put the air on it. Does it get is it Bill's hot? It's hot.
I think
He put it on.
she put it on.
Yeah, put it on. Maybe it's because I mean,
Put some of these chairs out if you guys want to sit. Put these chairs out. Put them in the back because we're going to have some more teachers show up.
no, I'm not calling it. No dance.
I see you on TV.
There is no incognito for me.
I don't think it's in your DNA.
So, first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. I know this is a really busy time of year, and I just want to let the candidates know I must have gotten at least half a dozen emails from people who said, please tell the candidates that it's a busy time of the year. They club one of the clubs here meeting. I know Minichog has their senior awards. Someone had a prom. It goes on and on. This is just a crazy. So realistically, what you see here is a nice group, but on another day we might have even a bigger group. My name is David Bernstein. I'm the Senate District Coordinator for this district, for the Gale Candaras district, Upper Hampton, Hampshire County, as we should probably call it. So hopefully I'll be working with one of these people next year, talking to them about issues dealing with education, and it's been fun working with Gale. She's been very true friend of education. I want to introduce a couple of people just before we introduce the candidates. Tim Collins, most of you know, and I appreciate helping me set this up. Always a great help. Bert Freeman, who's the Senate District Coordinator for Jim Welch. We kind of split to work together because Springfield is split, used to be split in half, but not so much anymore. We have 2 people from MTA here. Joanne Fitzgerald, who's the head of grassroots from MTA. And Corey, who's also works in the grassroots office. They're my boss, and they keep us going. So the way we're going to run this today is I'm going to ask each of these candidates to talk for 3 minutes, introduce themselves. I am going to time it, so I'll just kind of wave to you when I'm getting close. They each have a piece of paper that gave them a number, so I think Eric's going first, and then we'll do reverse order at the end. In between, after they're done, so you guys can start thinking about this, I'm going to ask you to talk about what it's like to be an educator or a retired educator in the year 2014. The purpose of this forum is not to hear them and their stands, it's to help them understand the difficulties and the issues that we're dealing with, or you're dealing with in class every day, and let them know how they can help us when these people hopefully win the race. And then at the end, I'll give them another 4 minutes each with a reverse order to talk about what they learned and how they want to respond or anything else. Anybody, we're all set with that? I think there are more seats up front if people want some. As they come in, that'd be great. And I guess we'll start. So Eric, I think you were first, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you very much, David, and thank you, Tim, for hosting us today. I know we've got 3 minutes, so I'll speak fast. It's particularly special for me to be here at a discussion with educators, because education's had a transformative impact on my life and on my family's life. My grandmother was a public school teacher in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn during some very difficult times in the 1960s and the 1970s. My father grew up in a housing project in Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. He worked as a taxi cab driver for much of his early adulthood to slowly pay his way through college. He went to public schools in Brooklyn and then public higher education in New York City, eventually became a doctor. My mother had a similar story. She's Italian. She grew up in Little Italy in Manhattan, a 3rd floor walk-up apartment. Her mother, or her father, was a longshoreman on the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and she also worked part-time and went to school part-time, little by little. Her whole life eventually became a professor. And education's had a transformative impact in my life. I have many teachers here today who have helped nurture me and have helped teach me for years, including Jamie DeBurn from Longmeadow, who was my teacher in Longmeadow and is a resident of Springfield. Mark Bale was a resident of Granby, was my debate coach when I was in high school. And these teachers helped nurture me, and I know it might be a surprise, but I learned early in life that I wasn't going to be the next Tom Brady or Drew Bledsoe. So I tried to focus on the books and focus on school. And unfortunately, not enough of our students in this district have that opportunity to get access to great public schools. We all know, I'm preaching to the choir on this, that too many of our students in our district in particular do not have access to good quality public education. My defining experience in politics was getting involved in fixing that. In 2002, there was a recession. We all know how painful that period was. I certainly don't need to remind this group about that. 25 teachers in Longmeadow were faced with termination as a result of budget cuts from the recession. And working with Mr. DeBurn and Saul, who's a retired educator as well, and a group of others, we put a coalition together. We knocked on every single door in our town to push for a Proposition 2.5 override. And as everybody in this room knows, that's not an easy thing to do. In fact, the first vote failed. And after that first vote failed, those pink slips were issued. But I was young, I didn't know any better. We put the measure right back on the ballot. We knocked on every single door again. And those pink slips were actually returned because the second vote passed. And so it was an early lesson for me that people who care about their community can change it. That people who care about their community can work to improve it. So I know we have a long forum ahead of us, so I'll respect the time limit and end there, but I'll just say that I'm so honored to be here, and I'm excited to engage with educators and engage with the education community about ways that we can improve our schools and ways that we can protect our teachers, because that was my defining political experience as a 16-year-old, was working to protect the teachers in my community, to protect our programs. Thank you, David.
Well, because my name is the hardest one to pronounce. And it's the only one with a USA in it. It's pronounced La Cuse. And I'm carrying this because I just came from doing a presentation across the street at Western Reno College. There's a conference there, a regional social work conference. And I presented on social networks and as an intervention technique to change people's lives. And so one of the examples I used was Governor Deval Patrick, who was living in the south side of Chicago. A teacher recognized his ability and, was a sort of a weak link in his network, but allowed him to apply for a program to go to Milton Academy, then go to Harvard, and then become our governor. And so I look at social networks as really a big factor in terms of people's success in life. Now, I grew up in Rochester, New York. I came here in 1973. In 1980, I bought a home right up the street, 836 Wilbraham Road. Lived here for 20 years. I now live in Long Meadow with my wife, and we have 4 children. I work full-time at the Hamilton County Correctional Center in Ludlow, and I also have a part-time private practice that I do. My wife is an occupational therapist. She's worked for 20 years in special ed in the Ludlow school system, and I have a sister-in-law who's been 25 years teaching, and my other sisters are teaching, and my best friend, Dwight Hall, some of you may know him. Dwight is running the program at Florida Community College. And so I've really been surrounded by teachers my whole life. Now, right now, I'm looking at my location, and I'm really not far. I'm yards away from where there was a domestic violence murder, a homicide of a police officer, Kevin Ambrose, where he was, came on a domestic call, was shot through a door, and then was shot in cold blood. Individual shot his wife, and then went in the parking lot and committed suicide. And for the last 18 years, I've been working on fighting domestic violence. I've been in the trenches, I've been at the jail, working directly with individuals. And that's the biggest thing that makes the difference between me and the other candidates. I mean, we all are going to line up pretty similar, and we all like each other, and so that's a good part. But I want to see some changes in domestic violence, and so that's why I want to take the state road. Now, in terms of education, I started as a teacher, and when I was a teacher in special ed, an experiment with travel school. We're done already?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, I guess the other thing would be safety for teachers, and we'll talk about that later.
Actually, please to stand up because this chair is broken. I've been actually hovering for the past minute or so. My thighs are killing me. My name is Chip Harrington. Thank you very much. I'm also a candidate for state senate. I live in Ludlow. I've lived in Ludlow for my whole life. I've lived in this district my whole life. I've never lived anywhere else other than this district. I just want to tell you a little bit about my background before I get into some of the educational issues. I was raised in Ludlow, went to Ludlow Public Schools, elementary school right through middle school. Had some wonderful public school teachers. Some are here. Mrs. Saunders is here.
Chip, you weren't a student.
I was a student, but I know how good she is as a teacher. My freshman and sophomore year, my parents sent me to Cathedral High School. And I went there for a couple of years, and I enjoyed that experience. It was great. I got to meet a whole new group of kids. At the end of my sophomore year, my father lost his job. He couldn't afford to send me to Cathedral anymore. So I went back to Ludlow High School, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with the town even more than I did before, and I fell in love with everything that Ludlow stands for and the district stands for. From there, I became very active within the community. I ran for the Recreation Commission. I became a selectman, and I've been serving as a member of the school committee for the last 10 years in Ludlow. And I'm going to give you some specific examples about some things that we've done in Ludlow that I think will resonate with teachers. And anybody who's a teacher right now is certainly going to know that we have a superintendent right now who's at the forefront of public education. And I'm so proud of the fact that I was a big part of bringing him into Ludlow. Before I get into those details, I also went to Hoyt Community College after high school. And then from there I went to Westfield State College. Paid for it all myself. Worked 3-4 jobs while I did it. As I mentioned, I don't come from a family of too many means, hard-working middle-class family. But I paid for everything myself. Was able to benefit with some small grants. But I worked my way through it. It took me a long time. I worked full-time, part-time. Sometimes I could only afford to take 2 classes. Sometimes I took more than that. But when I graduated from Westfield State College, it was one of the proudest moments of my life because I was the first one in my brothers and I to get a bachelor's degree. And my mom and dad were so proud because they were tech school graduates from Worcester High School. So I was the first one in their immediate family to have a bachelor's degree. And they're still very proud of that. All the while I was doing that, going to school, raising a family, my wife and I graduated high school together from Ludlow. My children went to Ludlow High School as well too. My son is now in the Air Force. One of the reasons to join the Air Force was that the lack of jobs in this area. Our economy is struggling, not just in the Springfield area, but the entire district. And Springfield is at the core of our community. If Springfield does well, we all do well. And the economy and jobs are one focus. But one thing I want to talk to you guys about is the work that I've done with public education. As I mentioned, I've been a member of the school committee for the past 10 years. When I first became a school committee member, I said to the voters, I want to take a good school system and make it great. Well, when I first got elected, we had fallen into a level 4 status. The whole district, not just a school, but the entire district. We had a lot of issues. Myself and the superintendent at the time, we bumped heads because I didn't agree with how she was managing the school system. I really thought that it was completely top down. And I believe very strongly, as a small business owner, that it comes from bottom up. And I'm going to give some more details. Wow, that was the quickest 3 minutes I think I've ever had in my life. But I'll get into more details about my experience with Ludlow Public Schools. But I think a lot of you know that Ludlow is at the forefront of public education right now with our superintendent. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim Allen. I'm a lifelong resident of Springfield, a member of the Springfield City Council. I've lived 62 years in Springfield, Mass. and spent some of that time teaching in the Springfield Public Schools. I grew up on Liberty Street in Springfield 24 years and 38 years, about 1.8 miles from here on Newton Road off of Plumtree Road. I'm a product of the Springfield Public Schools, and today I'm going to focus in these 3 minutes on my education stuff. There's a lot of other things I'd like to talk about, but this is about education, so I will fill you in on my education background. Product of the Springfield Public Schools, Liberty, Van Sickle, Classical, went to UMass, got my bachelor's degree in human development with an emphasis in early childhood education. Came out of UMass, went to teach in the pupil adjustment program at Eastern Avenue School and ended up at Howard Street School for 3 years as a teacher. Then I exited education for a while and went to my corporate life at Mass Mutual, a mile down the street, became a vice president in information technology. After 27 years there, I came back to my true love, which is education. And here's the things I've done since I came back at age 52. I retired from Mass Mutual 10 years ago to give back to my community. I left a lot of money on the table at Mass Mutual, and but the point of my life at that point was to give back. Here's what I've done since I got back. I worked for the Efficacy Institute, a national nonprofit ed reform institute out of Waltham, which believes that all children can learn at high levels. I think the main thing to get across is my belief in people, my belief in education. My degree was in human development. Everyone can develop. The Efficacy Institute believed that. Step Up Springfield Initiative in Springfield believed that. I managed that for 3 years. And not only was it about academics, it was about character, the development of character, parent involvement, community partnerships. I worked at that for 3 years. The funding ran out in 2009. And since then, I have been teaching at the college level, at Elms College and at Springfield College. My wife is back there. She is chairperson of the education department at Springfield College. My son is a middle school principal. He was South End Middle School in Springfield, and now he's at Birchland Park in East Long Meadow. My daughter-in-law, they both live next door. She's assistant principal of a middle school in Long Meadow. Education is in our family. It's in our blood. And I can see that from the point of view of I've been involved in these early childhood initiatives run by the Davis Foundation, etc. One of my proudest moments in the last couple of years was standing there in Denver, Colorado, a couple of years ago, with 6 other members of the Springfield community receiving the All-American City Award for the initiatives we have going in Springfield on getting everybody to be proficient at 4th grade reading, which is the key stat of all the education stats. The key one that determines people's future ability to succeed in life is, can you read on the first day of 4th grade? Are you proficient? And we have to get everybody to that point. I've dedicated my life. At this point, I've been teaching college for 4 years. My wife and son also teach college. It's part of who we are in the Allen family, the education stuff. So thank you, and I believe in Springfield.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
That's a long time to sit there and be quiet. I get it. And we're tearing up for it on our side, too. My name's Aaron Saunders. I'm a candidate for state senate. And David and MTA, thank you for hosting this. And Tim, thank you for opening up your union headquarters to hold this type of